After a breakup, what hits hardest is not the silence of no contact. It's seeing yourself reborn. It's when they look at you from afar and no longer find the person who used to beg, cry, or wait. What's devastating is not that you ignore their messages, but that your life continues to flow strongly with a calmness that depends on no one. The real impact comes when they discover that you lost your fear, that you didn't stay in the wound, and that now you build from fullness, not from absence. The silence only confuses for a while, but your transformation leaves an indelible mark. Seeing someone who took the pain and turned it into power is something impossible to ignore. That inexplicable serenity, that joy that needs no witnesses, that discipline that becomes your new love, are signs that speak louder than any word, because the message is not in what you keep silent, it's in what you become. This video is not a guide for revenge or to feed emotional games. It's a map to navigate through the darkness and come out the other side with a renewed identity. Here you will understand that no contact is just a starting point, but what really matters is the path you walk afterwards. If you stay, you will discover the lessons that transform grief into growth, absence into presence, and the past into the spark of your freedom. 1. Practice active indifference. It's like when you let go of a rope that you've been holding onto for too long, a rope that was burning your hands and keeping you tied to something that no longer existed. And suddenly you let go and feel the relief mixed with emptiness, because that tension you thought was necessary to feel alive is no longer there. That is the essence of active indifference. It's not about ignoring out of pride or disguising resentment with silence. It's about walking with your head held high as if nothing in your life depended on what that person does or doesn't do. Active indifference is a silent declaration of power. It's the most mature way to show that your life continues its course without stopping to look back. When we talk about active indifference, we're talking about a conscious attitude, not feigned coldness. It's not about posting indirect messages. It's not about blocking on social networks, hoping that the other person notices your absence. It's not about hiding behind a mask. It's about continuing with your life naturally, attending to your commitments, genuinely laughing, progressing in your projects, enjoying the little things without needing someone to applaud or validate it. That naturalness is more uncomfortable than any strategy because it shows that the breakup didn't paralyze you. It shows that your story isn't reduced to one person, that your life didn't get stuck waiting for a return that may never come. Active indifference is dangerous for those who still believe they have a privileged place in your world. The day your ex observes you and notices that you no longer react, that you don't ask, that you don't seek explanations or give excuses, that day they understand that they have lost control. Because the most devastating thing is not that you keep silent, it's that you no longer care, and that energy is felt. Nobody can manipulate you when your peace doesn't depend on what they do or say. Active indifference is an invisible wall that doesn't need words. It's a reminder that you're no longer available for emotional games. Practicing it in everyday life involves working on your mind every day. It involves not feeding the curiosity to know what the other person is doing, not falling into the trap of checking social networks, not wasting energy on conversations that only open old wounds. It's about choosing to invest that energy in yourself, in improving your physical health, in learning new skills, in surrounding yourself with people who contribute to your growth. It's about training the discipline to turn your gaze towards your present instead of getting stuck in what no longer makes sense. Active indifference becomes a habit when you decide not to react, but to respond calmly to each stimulus that used to shake you. Many confuse this attitude with coldness, but in reality, it's one of the deepest expressions of self-respect. It's not about not caring about anything, it's about choosing what deserves your attention and what doesn't. And when you choose not to waste energy on someone who is no longer part of your life, What you're saying is that your time and your peace are too valuable to waste. That's true freedom, not living in anticipation of someone's return, but living aware that you no longer need anything external to feel complete. Whoever learns to practice active indifference not only heals faster, but also builds a new standard of self-love. Because the strongest message is not given with words or shouts of independence, it's given with actions, with the way you live without resentment, with the calmness with which you get up every morning knowing that your story continues. 2. Find your happiness without witnesses. There are flowers that bloom in places where no one looks at them, in the crack of a forgotten wall, in the midst of concrete that seem to have won the battle, and yet they bloom with the same strength and beauty as if they had an entire garden watching them. That is the true test of happiness, discovering that you can smile and enjoy life even when there are no eyes applauding your joy. Finding your happiness without witnesses means not depending on looks, not needing anyone's approval to feel fulfilled. It is to build a joy that does not ask for validation and that does not crumble when there is no audience. After a breakup, it is common to fall into the trap of showing the world how well you are doing, of posting pictures, of pretending smiles, of leaving clues for the other person to notice that you are moving on. But that feigned happiness easily crumbles because it is born out of the need to prove something, not from inner peace. True strength comes when you do not need to share your happiness to feel it real. When you laugh in your solitude, when you enjoy a quiet afternoon, when you dance without anyone knowing, then your life stops revolving around a stage. That private joy is invulnerable because it does not depend on applause or comparisons or the opinion of an ex who no longer has power over you. Living your happiness without witnesses is learning to value the simple things, making yourself a coffee and enjoying it without rush, reading a book that fills you with new ideas, walking down the street without looking at your phone, dedicating time to yourself without expecting anyone to recognize it. Each of these acts is a reminder that your life belongs to you and does not need external approval. That emotional independence generates a type of light that is noticeable even when you are not looking for it. Because sooner or later others, including the one who lost you, perceive that your well-being is not an act but a solid reality. Practicing it in everyday life requires courage because we are surrounded by a world that lives to show off. Social networks, constant comparisons, the eagerness to always show what we do are traps that take us away from authenticity. That's why finding happiness without witnesses is an act of rebellion against that dynamic. It's choosing to grow in silence. It's learning to smile from within without having to announce it. It's not about hiding what you are. It's about not depending on the gaze of others to validate it. The impact of this on a breakup is devastating for someone who expected your life to revolve around proving something to them. An ex can ignore your silence, can minimize your achievements if you post them to provoke, but cannot ignore the genuine serenity you convey when your happiness does not need to be displayed. Because that calm is felt, it is reflected in your posture, in your way of speaking, in the way you no longer beg for attention. And that is the real victory, not to prove anything, but to live everything with authenticity. Whoever manages to find their happiness without witnesses develops an unbreakable inner strength. There is no longer a need for masks or showcases, just a life that is enjoyed from within. That kind of joy is not bought or faked. It is built day by day in the details, in the habits, in the silent gratitude. And that is the point that hurts the most to the one who lost you, discovering that your life no longer needs a spectator to shine. Because real happiness does not make noise, but its echo reaches everywhere. 3. Transform pain into visible power. Metal is not born strong. It is forged with fire, blows, and resistance. Each hammer blow, each moment in extreme heat, shapes and solidifies it. The same occurs with pain. It is not something you should hide or deny. It is the fire that can mold you into someone more resilient. A breakup can be the hardest blow you experience, but it can also become the opportunity to show that the same pain was the raw material of your transformation. True power is not hidden in forced smiles. It is revealed in your way of rebuilding yourself, in the visible fruits of your effort. Transforming pain into visible power does not mean pretending it did not affect you. It means taking each wound as fuel to grow. Those who once saw you broken and aimless now find you getting up earlier, training your body, cultivating your mind, advancing your goals. Each tangible change is proof that you did not stop, that suffering was not an anchor but an engine. This contrast is what shakes those who once thought they had defeated you. The key is to channel the energy of pain into actions that build. Many get stuck in complaints, memories, internal reproaches, but visible power is born when you decide to turn that same pain into discipline, when you use it as a reminder that you deserve more from yourself. Enrolling in a course, developing a new skill, improving your physique, organizing your finances, all of this speaks louder than any word. Transformation leaves a mark because it is reflected in facts that no one can deny. Practicing this in daily life implies commitment. It is not enough to want to change. You have to demonstrate it with consistency. Pain can be the perfect excuse to sink or the spark that ignites your evolution. You choose. Every day that you use that discomfort as an impulse to move, you build a version of yourself that inspires respect, and that strength becomes visible not only to others but to yourself. You discover that you are capable of more than you thought, that you can get up even when you felt there was no way out. Visible power does not need to be excessively displayed. It is not a theater to impress. It is the difference that others notice without you having to announce it. An ex can hear rumors, can see photos, but what really hits them is when they cross paths with you and perceive that you are no longer the same person, that you radiate confidence, that your gaze conveys security. This energy is not faked. It comes from having faced pain and transformed it into concrete results. This type of transformation also sends a deep message. You not only survived, you grew. And that disarms anyone who expected to see you defeated. Because while some seek revenge in words or gestures, you find it in your own evolution. The real triumph is not that the other person misses you. It is that you recognize yourself in the mirror and see yourself stronger, more aware, and firmer than before. Transforming pain into visible power is a lesson that is carried into all areas of life. If you learn to do it after a breakup, you will learn to do it in every adversity. Forged metal does not become weak again. The same happens with those who turn their scars into symbols of growth. This strength not only impacts your ex, it impacts your entire world, because every step you take with this new energy becomes proof that nothing can bring you down if you know how to use pain as an objective tool. 4. Cultivate inexplicable peace. A lake only reflects the sky when its surface is calm. If the waters are agitated, even if the sky is clear, all you see is distortion. This is how the mind works after a breakup. If it's restless, all you perceive is chaos, confusion, and noise. But when you learn to calm those internal waters, when you cultivate a serenity that doesn't depend on what happens outside, you project a peace that baffles anyone because it has no logical explanation. This is the inexplicable peace, a state where you no longer react with despair, where your emotions are not weapons in others' hands, but energy under your control. Inexplicable peace does not mean absence of pain or indifference to life. It means that you do not allow internal storms to define your direction. Someone may try to provoke you, speak ill of you, remind you of past wounds, but you no longer respond with the same intensity. That calm baffles because it breaks with the expected. Because what really scares an ex is not your anger or your sadness, it's that they discover that they no longer have the power to alter your balance. Cultivating that peace is a daily practice. It is not achieved with pretty phrases or with the romantic idea that time heals everything. It is achieved with discipline, with habits that strengthen your mind. Conscious breathing, meditation, writing, physical exercise, adequate rest. Each of these acts is like a drop that keeps the lake's surface calm. It's not about repressing what you feel, it's about learning to observe it without being dragged along. The pain is still there, but it no longer controls you, and that mastery over yourself is what is reflected outward. Everyday life offers multiple tests to practice it. When someone mentions your ex, you choose not to engage in toxic comments. When you remember painful moments, instead of reliving them with anger, you accept them as part of your story. When anxiety strikes, you choose to breathe and focus on the present. Each of these choices strengthens your peace and gradually makes it part of your identity. The impact of this inexplicable peace is devastating in the best sense. Whoever once believed they could shake you with their absence discovers that you now walk with tranquility. That serenity is impossible to attack because it has no cracks. An ex can argue, can invent, can criticize, but cannot break a calm that does not depend on their presence. That emotional stability is what hurts the most because it shows that your life is no longer defined by theirs. The power of this peace not only reflects in the relationship with the past, it also transforms your present and your future. The decisions you make are no longer contaminated by anxiety or fear. You become more conscious, more firm, more in control of your course. And that quiet confidence opens doors in your personal work and social life. People trust someone who conveys calm, because in a world dominated by noise, serenity becomes a beacon. Whoever cultivates this inexplicable peace learns to turn pain into wisdom and uncertainty into strength. It is not a mystical or unreachable state. It is the result of working on oneself with constancy. And the best thing is that, although it seems invisible, it always shows. Because that calm is transmitted in your way of speaking, in your way of looking, in the confidence with which you move forward. You don't need to prove anything. Your peace speaks for you. And that is the greatest victory, because no one can take away what you built from within. 5. Make your absence felt. When a candle goes out in a dark room, it's not so much the light it gave that is remembered, but the void left by its disappearance. The contrast between what was and what is no longer becomes a constant reminder. That's how your absence works after a breakup. It's not just a physical silence, it's an echo that persists in the other person's life. But the important thing here is not simply to disappear, but to make that absence have weight, to turn it into a silent presence that is impossible to replace. Making your absence felt is not about manipulation. It's not about creating an artificial void to punish someone. It's about living with such authenticity and growth that your absence is inevitably felt. When an ex remembers your discipline, your serenity, your ability to smile without depending on anyone, they discover that this void cannot be filled by another person. Because true absence is not measured in kilometers or blocked contacts, it's felt in the soul when you know you've lost something unique. The key is to transform your life in such a way that even in your silence, you speak louder than ever. Not responding to messages with resentment, not begging for explanations, not seeking to be remembered through indirect means. The real impact comes when your ex encounters versions of you that seem new, stronger, and more complete, and then realizes that the person they knew is no longer available. That absence becomes an uncomfortable presence because it forces them to confront the reality. They lost someone who is not coming back to the same place. In practice, making your absence felt means focusing on your life with an intensity that leaves no room for dependence. It's about getting up early and moving towards your goals, surrounding yourself with healthy environments, building new experiences without dragging chains. The more you invest in yourself, the more evident your absence becomes to the other person. Because it's not just about being far away, but about being transformed. And that transformation is what leaves a void hard to ignore. Many believe that absence is achieved by closing all doors, but the real strategy is to grow so much that you no longer fit in the same space you left behind. Your ex can fill their time with distractions. They can try to replace your place, but sooner or later they'll notice that what they miss is not your physical presence, but the essence of someone who has now evolved. And that discovery hurts, because it shows that the void cannot be resolved with substitutes. The power of this lesson is that it doesn't depend on public demonstrations. You don't need to shout your success or post every step on social networks. Absence becomes stronger when your life speaks for itself, when it's clear that you're no longer revolving around what you lost. The one who truly impacts is not the one seeking attention, but the one who follows their path with determination. And it's in that contrast where your absence becomes a constant reminder of what they can no longer have. Making your absence felt is an act of self-respect. It's not about revenge or inflicting pain, it's about reclaiming your place in your own life. By doing so, you make it clear that your value did not depend on the relationship, but was within you from the start. And by living from that certainty, your ex inevitably feels the weight of your absence, because authentic absence is not empty silence, it's transformation that is felt even if it's not seen. 6. Rebirth with purpose. A burnt forest seems doomed to nothingness, but beneath the ashes pulses a powerful truth. The earth is enriched by what seemed to be destruction, and over time, a life stronger, greener, and more resilient than before sprouts. That is rebirth with purpose, not getting up just out of pride or to prove that you survived, but to build a life that has a greater meaning than pain. True rebirth is not a simple recovery. It is a radical change in which every step you take reflects that you now know where you are going. Rebirth with purpose involves transforming the break into a starting point. Many manage to get up, but they do so aimlessly, filling the void with distractions, with momentary pleasures, with superficial relationships. That kind of rebirth is fragile because it depends on the external. What really makes the difference is rediscovering why you are here, what you want to build, what footprint you want to leave. The power of this rebirth is visible. It is noticeable in your habits, in your energy, in your decisions. You are no longer the same person who settled for little. Now you are someone who pursues goals firmly, who does not get distracted by the banal. That transformation scares those who expected to see you trapped in nostalgia. Because you not only move forward, you do it with a strength and clarity that you did not have before. That hurts more than any silence, because it is proof that you lost something that not only recovered, but multiplied. To bring this rebirth to everyday life, it is necessary to question yourself deeply. Ask yourself what things you have postponed, what dreams you buried for comfort or fear, what goals you left aside for being trapped in a relationship. The time to get up is not to return to the same, but to reinvent yourself. Learn a new skill, undertake a personal project, commit to your health, invest in your spiritual growth. This process also involves cutting off what no longer fits into your new life. Empty relationships, routines that drain, habits that sabotage you. Rebirth is not about accumulating more. It is about cleaning the unnecessary to make room for what really matters. When your environment begins to align with your purpose, the transformation becomes impossible to ignore. The impact on those who knew you before is inevitable. They notice that you are no longer the same version of you, and that change becomes a mirror that confronts them with their own lack of evolution. Rebirth with purpose is not just a personal benefit, it is a powerful message to the world. It means showing that pain did not destroy you, that you knew how to use it as raw material to build something bigger. That message inspires, awakens admiration, and in those who lost you, awakens the certainty that they no longer have a place in your new path. Because there is nothing more devastating for an ex than to discover that you were able to use the breakup as the spark to find your true direction. Authentic rebirth is not a passing act, it is a declaration of life. It is getting up every morning knowing that your story has a higher meaning than any wound. And that kind of energy cannot be faked or replaced. It is the result of having gone through the fire and having come out transformed. Whoever manages to be reborn with purpose is no longer the same, because they understand that the real victory is not in recovering what was lost, but in becoming someone impossible to topple or hurt. 7. Make discipline your new love. The sea does not conquer the shore with a single wave. It does so with the constancy of thousands of them that never stop. That is the essence of discipline, the power to firmly repeat what builds you, even when there is no motivation, even when no one is watching. After a breakup, most people run after quick reliefs, parties, distractions, fleeting loves. But those patches fade and leave the same emptiness. Discipline, on the other hand, becomes a love that never leaves you, a force that rebuilds you from the inside and projects outward a change impossible to ignore. Loving discipline is rediscovering the order you deserve. It's committing to sleep at the right time, to take care of what you eat, to train your body, to nourish your mind. It's not living like a robot. It's reminding yourself daily that your well-being matters more than any past. When you make discipline your partner, what was once chaos becomes structure, and what was once out of control becomes direction. That change is noticeable in your energy, in your posture, in the clarity of your gaze. And when someone who knew you in weakness sees you again, they understand that you now belong to another level of life. Discipline is also a silent language. You don't need to announce that you got up early, that you trained, that you read, that you fulfilled your work. People perceive it in how you walk, in the confidence you transmit, in the control of your emotions. An ex may try to ignore your silence, may believe that nothing has changed, but cannot deny the obvious. Your consistency shaped someone new. That visible power is much more devastating than any attempt to pretend, because discipline cannot be faked, it is demonstrated. To practice it daily, you need firmness. There will be days when fatigue wants to dominate you, moments when the temptation to give up is strong, but discipline is not negotiable. It's making the decision to get up even though your body is heavy, to meet your goals even though your mind asks for rest, to stay true to yourself even in solitude. The reward is not immediate, but it accumulates in silence until one day your whole life reflects the result. That is the most solid love you can build, because it does not depend on anyone else, only on your commitment to yourself. Making discipline your new love is also an act of self-respect. You tell yourself with actions that you are worthy of effort, that your health, your mind, and your spirit deserve the best of you. When you choose this path, you stop being someone who seeks external validation and become someone who validates themselves with facts. That message does not need words. It is noticeable in how you face challenges, how you react calmly, how you project confidence without boasting. The most powerful thing is that this transformation not only impacts the one who lost you, it impacts your entire environment. People who know you start to be inspired by your example. Your circle changes, your opportunities multiply, because discipline not only strengthens you, it also elevates you. And that new standard makes any comparison with your past painful for those who expected to see you defeated. Making discipline your new love means understanding that life is not about waiting for motivation, but about creating it with repeated acts. It's knowing that what you do today, even if it seems small, will be the foundation of the person who tomorrow will be impossible to knock down. And that love, unlike any other, never leaves you, always pushes you to more. 8. Embrace freedom as your true victory. Birds do not learn to fly to impress those they left in the nest. They do so because they discover that their wings only make sense in the open air. That is the essence of freedom after a breakup. Not to seek the other person to notice your absence, but to embrace your own flight as the greatest achievement. The true victory is not that your ex misses you. It is that you discover that you no longer need chains to move forward. That freedom becomes an impossible symbol to ignore, because nothing impacts more than seeing someone who one day seemed dependent now, walking lightly, without fear and without ties. Embracing freedom means to stop measuring your life by the presence or absence of someone. It's to stop looking at the phone, waiting for a message, to stop justifying your steps based on what the other person thinks, to stop molding your identity to fit into a relationship. It's understanding that life does not begin when someone comes back, but when you decide to move in the right direction. That decision is radical, because it cuts the illusion of dependence and opens the door to authenticity. Whoever manages to live like this shows that their happiness is not mortgaged to any person, and that is the strongest blow to whoever thought they were indispensable. True freedom is noticeable in the small details. When you choose to travel without giving explanations, when you enjoy an afternoon without thinking about proving anything, when you invest your time in projects that arise from your interest and not from the approval of others. These simple acts scream louder than any post or calculated silence, and the most curious thing is that when you no longer act to send messages, that's when you send the most messages. Because real independence has a magnetism that not even the hardest pride can ignore. Practicing this freedom in everyday life involves taking risks. It means daring to say no to what does not add up, risking making decisions that you would have previously avoided for fear of losing, daring to explore new paths even if there are no guarantees. That courage does not eliminate uncertainty, but it does eliminate paralysis. You discover that your life does not stop for fear of making a mistake, that every step belongs to you, and that even mistakes build your path. That security bothers those who expected to find you chained to the past. The impact of this transformation is evident. Whoever once thought they had you under control notices that they no longer respond to your movements, that your life no longer revolves around their shadow. And that absence of dependence is devastating because it shows that their power over you died. They can no longer manipulate you with silence. They can no longer destabilize you with rejection. They can no longer define your mood with their presence. You have recovered the only thing that really matters, your freedom. But this victory is not just a personal revenge. It is a gift that extends to your entire life. When you embrace freedom, your relationships change because they no longer arise from need, but from choice. Your projects flourish because they are no longer excuses to fill voids, but expressions of your purpose. Your days become lighter because you no longer carry invisible chains. And all this transforms the way the world perceives you, someone independent, authentic, and owner of their story. Embracing freedom as your true victory is to close the cycle of dependence and open the door to your best version. It is not an act of rebellion against someone else. It is a commitment to yourself. It is to look back and thank what ended, because it gave you the opportunity to recover what you should never have lost, your autonomy. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment, "I am Stoic," as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.